Story 1. Planned a date on the dating app Tinder that required me to book a ticket to a nearby city to meet her. I went to our meeting location and waited. After 15 minutes past the arranged time, I tried to text her. She had blocked me everywhere and completely ghosted me. Story 2. One of my friends once got rejected in probably the weirdest way possible. She was at a party, and there was this guy she had been eyeing all night. They were vibing, talking about music and random stuff, so she figured she would go for it. She leaned in kind of flirty and asked if he wanted to hang out sometime. He just looked at her, dead serious, and said, "I would, but I have this really intense Minecraft server to manage. It's kind of my priority right now." She honestly did not know how to respond. Story 3. In high school, I liked a boy, and at the time, I loved paper gifts, especially handmade ones. I remember making a cute little tulip out of colorful paper, and it even had a scent. I gave the flower to him during the break. When I returned to the classroom after lunch, a girl had that exact same flower on her desk. I asked how she got it, and she said, "I didn't get it. I found it in the trash and decided to take it home." Story 4. I was in my 20s. My best friend and I went out and met two guys. One started talking to me and we got along very well. He asked me out. The date went well, so I asked him for a second date. Then he said he was attracted to my friend but was too shy to talk to her. He thought he could convince me to ask her what she thought about him. Story 5. It was about 20 years ago in my late teenage years. I was new to university and met a girl. Let's call her Suzanne. Suzanne and I went on a couple of dates. She was fun, quirky, and into the same nerdy things as me. One evening, she invited me back to her student flat. I was excited because of teenage hormones and the promise of what was to come. When I arrived, there was another guy sitting on the couch, holding a glass of lemonade, looking as confused as I was about the two of us being there. Suzanne handed me a glass of lemonade, told me to sit down, and opened her laptop. I sat next to the guy and took a sip of my lemonade. What followed was a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation with charts and data about her two prospective boyfriends, me and the other guy. Apparently, she had been dating both of us and put us head-to-head to determine the winner. The results of this research were now being presented through Microsoft PowerPoint. At the end of the presentation, the conclusion was that I had lost, and the other guy had won. She wrapped up with a neat, "Are there any other questions?" followed by stunned silence from both of us. She thanked me for the dates, wished me the best of luck in my future endeavors, and escorted me out. I got up, shook the other guy's hand, awkwardly said, "Congratulations, I guess," and walked away, not entirely sure what had just happened. Weirdest breakup ever. Story 6. You are the kind of boy all the girls want to marry, but not the kind of boy we want to date. I was 14. Story 7. I was doing political volunteer work. He was a paid political consultant. He was funny and smart, and I thought we had a decent rapport, until he was talking to another man and, with me standing right there, said, "It seems I attract only the hideous and repulsive." Story 8. Just before I quit Tinder and other online dating applications, the last straw for me after a few horrible first meetings occurred. This man worked in accounting or finance and described himself as an intellectual. He said 2 days before our scheduled meeting that if he did not find me intellectually stimulating within the first 15 minutes, he would end the date. He ended it in 10 minutes, was very standoffish around me, and borderline cordial but mean, perhaps snarky. It severely damaged my self-confidence, and I swore off the applications for a long time. Story 9. He stopped responding to me. Then, after 3 weeks of no contact from him, he texted, "Hey, are you ignoring me?" Story 10. In 1964, we had Sadie Hawkins dances where the girls asked the boys out. I went up to my crush in the hallway at school and asked him. He looked shocked and said no, then ran off. That was awful for a long time, but luckily life helps by turning it into an anecdote. Story 11. I went on a date with a guy who seemed interested in me. He said things like I was pretty. He asked all about my future dreams and what kind of life I wanted to live. He asked personal things like how many kids I wanted to have and countries I wanted to travel to in the future. He also suggested we could go together one day. It was really forward, but I liked that he wasn't beating around the bush. He insisted on paying for dinner and suggested we get ice cream afterward because he didn't want the day to be over. Everything went well, and he was really charming. He was a super outgoing, positive guy. Later, I messaged him and mentioned something about the date. I was thanking him for the fun time. He expressed confusion and said that he had not taken me on a date. He also said he wasn't interested in dating. I was very embarrassed and angry because I felt like he was smart enough to know we were definitely on a date. Felt like some game he was playing with me. Word got around about what happened, and his own friends called him an idiot for not recognizing it as a date. I think it had been a date, but he decided partway through that he wasn't interested in me after all. Apparently, I wasn't the only girl he had done this to. In hindsight, I wonder if it was something he got off to. I've nicknamed him Gaston in my mind because that guy was in love with himself. He later asked out my best friend on an actual date, and she turned him down because of what he did to me. Gotta love karma. Story 12. I asked a girl out, and she looked me up and down, then said, "I would rather shovel pig manure for a penny a pound with a baby spoon than go out with you." I ended up marrying her. Story 13. Two things, both equally hurtful in different ways. A guy I was hooking up with was seeing another girl, which we both knew about. I was falling in love with him, and he told me he wanted to be with me too. Then he said he broke things off with the other girl. One night, we had sex, and literally 2 minutes after we finished, we were lying in bed naked, and he told me he would actually be with the other girl because he promised her he would. The second time was when I arranged a hookup date through a dating app. We went out for a drink, started kissing, and he took me to his place. We were both naked in bed when he suddenly got up and walked away, then came back and told me he changed his mind because he did not like my tattoos. It was a big ego blow. I was oscillating between thinking that a person can change their mind about sex at any point and feeling really angry because my tattoos are only on my arms, which he could see in the pub. Story 14. I went to visit a girl I thought I had a mutual connection with at her college and stayed in her very small single dorm room. I was sleeping on the floor, which was not a good sign for my chances, but I was a gentleman and also an idiot. She left while I was sleeping, came back with another guy, and started being intimate with him in the bed above me. The noise woke me up, and I left immediately. I drove 2 hours home on 3 hours of sleep while listening to music to stay alert. In retrospect, we were never going anywhere, partly because I was difficult to be around at that age and had a lot of growing up to do. I'm grateful that I didn't spend any more time with her than I already had. I still would have appreciated a straightforward rejection rather than whatever that was supposed to be. Story 15. I, a 36-year-old female, met him, a 33-year-old male, at a festival in Germany. We then spent a week together in the apartment I had in Berlin. He showered me with affection, made me feel safe, shared big plans and dreams, and I was very hopeful. He left for Indonesia and invited me to join him in Bali, which I did 2 weeks later. Felt like a fairy tale. I really fell for him. 2 days after I arrived, he said he was no longer interested. That was a little over a month ago, and I am still not over it. Story 16. We had been living together for 8 years. I had just come back from a holiday, and a switch seemed to flip in his brain. He started acting rude and picking fights. He would not explain the change. After 1 month, he said that he thought I should move out. I still do not know why, and it was 15 months ago. Story 17. I proposed to my then-girlfriend on my birthday, the day before she flew back to Missouri for the fall semester. We had been dating for 2 years, and it felt like the right pace, not rushing into anything. She didn't give me a yes or no. Maybe it was the pressure, and she needed to talk it over with her mom since they talked about everything. I didn't fret. 2 weeks passed without a word. I got a card in the mail saying I needed to pick up something at the post office. She mailed the ring back with no note or explanation. I had to sign for the package because the insurance on the item was high. That was 18 years ago. Took me about 10 years to get over it, and we still haven't spoken since. Story 18. Without even asking or indicating, a woman I was not pursuing, flirting with, or interested in randomly volunteered the information that she would not date me. Felt especially demeaning that way. Story 19. Met a guy from Tinder. We talked for months and FaceTimed a few times a week. He came over and his behavior ranged from love bombing to trying to play fight, which ended up with me getting hurt. He went back home and then suddenly disappeared. Later, he messaged me apologizing and saying he was under pressure from other situations, which caused him to pull away from ours. I forgave him and understood. We chatted for a few more months. When he found out I was having a birthday party, he suddenly became very attentive, talking about the possibility of me moving in with him and the future together. He arrived at my party before everyone else. He acted strangely and insulted me through jokes. I ended up doing things to avoid him, like taking long showers or staying in the bathroom for a while. When my friends arrived, he had changed again. He became best friends with them and started making jokes at my expense. My friends didn't buy it and asked, "What's happening? I thought you said this guy was into you. Why is he here?" It was so embarrassing to see someone change their demeanor so quickly. I got drunk and told him I couldn't wait to get him out of my house because he was being rude. He had been drinking and couldn't drive, so he stayed. He left early in the morning and was back to being affectionate and sweet. I didn't want that. When he got home, he sent me a message saying, "You know we can only be friends, right?" I think he pretended to be in love with me just to keep other guys at the party from showing interest. He wanted me all to himself, not out of romantic interest, but out of possession. He rejected me to assert that. He wanted physical intimacy, but no emotional connection. I didn't give that, and he was gone. Story 20. I found out my fiancé slept with my mother. I felt totally rejected and called off the wedding. 12 years later, he still has not changed and wishes he could be with me. I am so glad I did not marry him. Story 21. I was invited to hang out with a girl I had been talking to. It was college, so I walked a long way to get there. When I arrived, she was on the roof of her apartment building with a friend, shouting something to me and laughing. Couldn't quite make it out. I thought they were telling me to come up. I went inside, went up the stairs, found the roof access and climbed up. There was another guy with them who I couldn't see from the ground. When I waved and said hi, I saw the girls talk to each other. Then the guy came up to tell me I wasn't welcome. Then it dawned on me it was April 1st. I heard one girl say to the one who invited me, "I thought he was supposed to be an April Fool's joke." And then I realized they were shouting and laughing at me from the rooftop. They were so drunk I couldn't make out April Fools. At first, I walked all the way back to where my friends were hanging out, dejected. Still to this day, that bothers me. I can't believe someone would do that. My friends were all in disbelief. Story 22. My crush accepted my confession at first, but my jealous best friend, who liked the same person as me, ruined everything by spreading nasty rumors. My crush took my side but decided that they did not want to give me a chance anymore. Story 23. A guy I had a huge crush on. I finally worked up the courage to confess my attraction. He replied, "You're pretty, but I don't know," and invited me over for a weekend at his house. I thought I was finally going to be with him. We bought a bottle of wine and got pretty drunk. He was acting flirty. I climbed on his lap and attempted to kiss him. He said, "Sorry, I don't do that with girls I'm not in love with," then asked me for oral sex while pretending I was his ex. He was not over her. I went home crying. Fortunately, now I am engaged to the love of my life, so I don't care. Story 24. I was interested in a girl who worked at Subway. I worked a few shops down, so I used to get coffee and lunch from there, making it common for me to be there 3 or 4 times a day. She seemed sweet and very pretty but didn't like the area, calling it a petri dish because of all the germs. She was never stuck up when talking to me. Her manager, who was also the shop owner's daughter, told me she talked about me a lot, what I wore, my cologne, and was pretty sure she liked me. She had told the manager I was single, a good guy with a strong work ethic, and the manager said she thought I was quite handsome. I asked her if she would like to go out one night. She excitedly said yes and gave me her number. I told her I would call after work. I tried calling around 6 o'clock, but the phone rang out. I tried 6 times with no answer. The next morning I saw the manager, and she was upset. She told me the girl had given me a fake number but didn't know why. Later, the girl said she regretted it and really did want to go out with me. At lunchtime, she was working and apologized. I laughed and said I only called once and didn't try. Again, when she didn't answer, she honestly told me she wanted to go out but asked for a double date with the manager and her partner. We all agreed to meet. I went to the manager's house on Saturday and waited, but she never showed up. She had stood me up twice but still continued to flirt with me. Story 25. I confessed my feelings to a girl I was good friends with, but she told me she was not looking to date at the time, which I accepted. The next day, I saw her making out with her new boyfriend. I still do not understand why she was not just honest with me. Up until then, we had shared a lot with each other. That friendship ended very quickly after that. I did not feel like talking to her for a while, and she started fully ignoring me anyway, as she was always with her boyfriend. Story 26. Had a good time with a friend, making her laugh. I asked her out after gathering courage. She said, "Ew, no." Story 27. I ran into a woman I knew from high school at a concert. We had a great conversation, started dancing, and then she kissed me. I thought to myself, wow, awesome. I was with friends, so we had to go, but we exchanged numbers, and she suggested going out the next weekend. Fantastic. Then she did not show up at the place we were going to meet. I called her, but she did not pick up. 15 minutes later, I called again. I was annoyed but thought our wires got crossed. Nope. I walked down the street to a different place and found her making out with some guy in the bar. She saw me, got a surprised expression on her face, and chased me out onto the sidewalk, apologizing, explaining that was her longtime boyfriend. I told her that I was not going to ruin her life or cause a scene. Instead, I simply pointed out that if she did not want to go out, the word no would have worked perfectly fine. I met my wife 2 months later. We have been married 33 years. Meanwhile, this woman went through a series of unstable relationships. Karma. It boils down to this: no is the most powerful word in the English language. If you are not interested, simply say no rather than play those kinds of games. 99.99% of all men on the planet would prefer that. Story 28. It's tied between one time I asked a guy if he wanted to get lunch together and he said he already ate. Like, what? You already ate for the next year's worth of lunches? Just say no. The other thing that comes to mind is when I was flirting with a friend and tried on a slave Leia costume. I asked him what he thought, and he immediately shut me down by starting to critique its lore accuracy. Story 29. I was dating a girl in a medium-long distance relationship. We had been dating for about 6 months. She lived an hour away. We saw each other 2 or 3 times a week and we were exclusive. I was at my parents' house for Thanksgiving, and we had planned for a couple of weeks that I would see her before I went home that night. When I left my parents' house, there was a blizzard happening, and my cell phone had no service. I thought it was no big deal because she knew I was coming to see her. After driving for 2 hours at half the speed limit, I finally made it to her dorm. I knocked. She answered the door and acted completely surprised that I was there. She said, "I think it's weird that you just showed up out of nowhere." Okay. I went home, and when I got there, I called her to touch base. She told me that she felt like I was stalking her and that she was going to get a restraining order against me. I thought that I had gone crazy. Story 30. I have 2 stories. 1. In middle school or junior high, I liked 2 guys, M and B, who were best friends. One day, B came up to me and said, "I know you like M and want to go out with him. I'll have him call you after school." I waited at home and received a call. It was M. I said hello and noticed that B was also on the call. M said, "Hi Sassy, it's M. I know B said I'd call you, and I know you like me, but I'd never go out with you." M and B then started laughing loudly and hung up. I cried so hard that day, but my mom took me to get a brownie sundae to cheer me up. The next day at school was very awkward. 2. In high school, it was Valentine's Day. I liked a guy and made a Valentine's card from a secret admirer, and he received it later that day. I wrote it in Spanish since I was learning it in school. He got the card in class and began to read it. He was taking French and did not know what it said. He loudly said, "Sassy, if this card is from you, it's pathetic and terrible." I did not say anything but was very embarrassed. Story 31. Not me, but I accidentally embarrassed a kid my freshman year. The kid liked me, but he wasn't my type. He asked me out on a sticky note. Not wanting to be rude and write a blatant no, I ended up writing something like, I am very flattered and that's very sweet of you to ask. I'm really sorry, but you're just not my type. I wrote on 2 stickies and stapled them together. Turns out his friends made fun of him for months. I felt awful. I was trying to be, albeit awkwardly, nice and let him down gently, but instead, I turned him into a laughingstock for a while. I hope that person is doing okay. For me, also in high school, I gave a rose to my ex during a band concert because I wanted to get back together. He took the flower and literally ate half of it. He bit into it, chewed, and swallowed. Then he looked at me with dead seriousness and said, "No." He started dating my best friend a week later. Dodged a bullet though, he's a total psychopath. I wish I were making this up. Story 32. So earlier this year, I tried to transfer to a new position in a different location within the company that I work for. I completed all the interviews and they offered me the job. They told me the transfer would take about a month to complete. About a month later, I received a rejection email instead. They never explained why. Story 33. Secondary school. I had a huge crush on a girl I shared a couple of classes with. She was basically the den mother of the year group. She always came across as caring, and everyone liked her. She was way out of my league. During a school trip to look at local churches, we ended up paired together, and it turned out to be a really pleasant time. I brought a camera to take photos, and she asked if I could have copies made for her. Looking back, this is cringe, but I was a dumb kid. When I had the photos developed, I slipped in a letter saying that I wanted to get to know her better. Not a full confession, but I guess it would have been obvious. During lunchtime, I remember catching her reading the letter and then bursting out laughing. That moment is still ingrained in my memory roughly 16 years later. Story 34. The worst way I have ever been rejected was last month. I had been spending time with someone, and we had so much in common. More than anyone I had ever met. I fell in love. I confessed my feelings. We kissed for hours. The next day, she told me that I am the nicest, funniest, most generous person she has ever met, that I have the best taste in everything. She told me she regrets to say she does not reciprocate my feelings. She said she would like to be friends. She also said that, knowing how much I care for her, she feels inclined to back off. She feels that friendship would be abusive to me, and I do not deserve that. So why was this the worst? Because it was the best rejection I have ever had. Cannot hate her. Proved to me that she was everything I knew she was. My heart aches for her. I have cried every day for the last month. I miss her so much. I absolutely adore this woman. Story 35. I was told that I was too fat to his face when he arrived for the date. He just said that, then turned around and walked out. Story 36. My first boyfriend left me for my best friend when I was pregnant. He swore nothing was going on, and even if we broke up, he would never date her. She ended up pregnant at the same time as me. I had an abortion and she lost hers. 20 years later, he became pro-life, and when he posted something about it, I reacted with laughter. He cursed at me and blocked me. Best closure ever. Story 37. When I was in 8th grade, I had a crush on one of the boys in my science class. He found out one day, and I overheard him tell his friend, "The only pretty thing about me is the back of my head." That stung a lot. Story 38. I was 15 years old and had fallen in love for the first time with a girl who just wanted to be friends but kept giving me mixed signals, dangling the carrot just out of reach. A close friend of one of my other friends started messaging her and invited her to the movies. She asked me if I would go with her because she said yes to him but didn't want him to think it was a date. She had zero interest in the guy. She just really wanted to see the movie Monsters vs. Aliens. We got there a bit late, got our stuff, sat down, and after about 5 minutes, I realized I needed to go to the bathroom. I hurried because I didn't want to miss the movie. When I got back, they were making out aggressively. I sat next to them, totally stunned, and I remember crying through most of the movie. I should have left, but I didn't want to make a scene. Later, she confessed that she had always loved me, and wanted to be more than friends. I rejected her, which honestly felt very cathartic. Story 39. Not romantic, but little 12-year-old me had no friends and wanted to be included in something. During recess, I tried to mingle with some classmates while they talked, just to listen to what they were saying. They talked for a bit and did not look at me once, until one who would later bully me badly said, "Go away," in the most scathing voice. I left the group instantly and walked around for a while, not knowing what to do with myself. Eventually, I ended up in the toilets where I cried. I wish I could go back and teach 12-year-old me some vital lessons earlier. Story 40. This happened twice with two different women. One was a friend in my old friend group and the other was a classmate. I talked to them, made jokes, and then asked if they would like to hang out. They both said yes with a smile and I got their phone numbers. Woman number one ghosted me for 2 weeks, then said, "Oh, sorry, I am too busy," and never acknowledged it again. Woman number two replied, "Oh, sorry, I was just trying to be nice, but I am not interested." I had a huge crush on woman number two, and that one hurt. The first one turned out to be difficult, so that was a bullet dodged. Story 41. One time, someone tried to push me in front of an oncoming bus. Thankfully, I tripped over my own feet and fell in a safe direction. Children can be cruel. Story 42. When I was about 15, I was the archetypal geek kid. Bad glasses, bad haircut, awful at sport and brainy. But I was liked because I was funny and nice. One of the popular girls told me she really liked me and asked me out. I said yes and told a couple of people who then spread it around the school. Her cool friends made fun of me. She denied everything and said that I had made it up. She apologized afterward, but it was too late by that point. Story 43. I like you too, but I cannot date people who are not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Story 44. They said they felt the same way, but a few weeks later admitted they lied to avoid hurting my feelings. It was unfortunate. It has happened twice, the only 2 times I tried. Story 45. I was at the end of middle school and he was early in high school. We were at summer camp and I had never been on a date or anything. I didn't have a great relationship with my parents, so when a cute guy seemed interested, I was both shocked and over the moon that someone was being nice to me and giving me attention. I was about 14, so bear with me. The whole week he would do things like hold my hand and ask me to dance at our dance outings at night, and ask if I wanted to get coffee after camp. It turned out the whole time he, his friends, and my best friend all knew it was a big joke and were in on it. I honestly wasn't surprised because this had happened before, but then my friend posted a bunch of photos on social media she had taken of the two of us, and they were all laughing about it. That sucked. Story 46. One girl laughed at me, another just yelled, "Ew," and the girl I asked to prom said it just wasn't her scene to do school dances. Yet, come to find out, she went with one of the athletes. High school killed any confidence I had in myself, and 10 years later, I still haven't had a date. Story 47. I told someone I loved her, and she freaked out. She told me I was too serious and convinced me that we should just be friends. She posted about this on social media. The next day, she changed her mind and started showing interest in me, after hurting me deeply and embarrassing me publicly. Story 48. I was really shy in high school. I did not ask many girls out. Once, at a party, I saw a girl who I thought was gorgeous. I approached her and we had a decent conversation. I asked her if she would like to go out with me, and she responded, "Not if you were the last guy on earth." I still remember how I felt after that response. Story 49. I asked a girl out in high school, and she told me my face was too ugly. I have a birth defect that covers part of my face. I wasn't upset that she rejected me, but geez, that was cold. Story 50. I was in Var, Croatia. I met a blonde Polish girl. I was with her on the dance floor when she asked if we could go back to my yacht. I asked if she meant the hostel I was staying at. She turned around and walked away. Story 51. I had just started writing poetry in junior high. I wrote one that my teacher said I should recite in front of the class. Being a theater kid, that wasn't a problem. Afterward, the class complimented the poem and asked if I had written it about anyone. I kept saying it wasn't for anyone until the girl I wrote it for said how much she liked it and wished someone would say those things to her. I told her I had actually written it for her. She said she was ugly and that I could do better, then proceeded to tell everyone I wrote the poem for her. I was mortified. If I had a nickel for every time this happened, I'd have 2 nickels. It's not a lot, but strange that it happened twice. Story 52. My last partner rejected me because he wanted to focus on his drug-free life. I do not take drugs, but he did. Looking back, I am glad because he still uses drugs, but cutting off someone who supports you is unwise. I liked him a lot. Story 53. The person I lost my virginity to ended our relationship later that night through a text message. Story 54. I never had the courage to ask a guy out, and when I finally did, I didn't exactly ask him out. I texted him directly and told him he was cute. We talked for 2 days, and he ended up asking me to go for coffee the next day. The next day, he canceled the date, saying he wasn't ready to date anyone. Turned out that wasn't the truth. Somebody said something about me that made him cancel the date altogether. I still don't know what was said to him. Story 55. A girl stopped responding after a couple of dates. No problem. I'm an adult. It's all good. It was probably just fun and not going anywhere anyway. But we did have good banter and she was very attractive. The kind of attractive that probably got everything in her life handed to her and thought that was normal treatment. Anyway, she stopped responding and then came to one of my shows about 2 months later. She asked why I stopped texting her. I told her it was because she stopped responding. She played dumb, then checked our texts, confirmed it, and told me I should text her again. In fact, tomorrow, she said. I shouldn't have, but I did. She stopped responding again. Story 56. I asked a girl out in high school. She rejected me and then told all of our friends that she developed bulimia because her self-image was ruined by me thinking I had a chance. Story 57. Sort sugar oatmeal wine whistle hateful modern threatening thought shocking. Story 58. Prom date tells me that towards the end of the event, she started seeing someone else. Story 59. I thought about confessing to a girl, but before I got around to it, she beat me to the punch with, I know what you were thinking, and no, do not even bother asking. Damn, at least hear a guy out. Story 60. Had someone I liked for a few years tell me, you have everything I am looking for in a man. I just want to find someone like you. Story 61. In middle school, I asked a boy out in my orchestra class using a written note that said, check yes or check no. He tore up the note, put it in my orchestra folder, and wrote, this is my answer inside the folder. When I opened it during the next class, all the torn paper fell out. Definitely an unpleasant response. Story 62. I met someone online and we planned to go out to dinner. We exchanged photos, had some phone conversations, and set a date. She arrived at my place in what appeared to be a brand new Saab. However, she asked if I could drive. We went to my car and she paused outside, looking it over. At the time, I was driving a rough-looking Chevrolet. Then she said she needed to get something from her car. I sat in my car and waited. After a long wait, I went back to where she had parked, and her car was gone. I was self-aware enough to know if she had left because of my appearance, but it was definitely because of the car. Keep in mind, I live in Los Angeles, during a time when "what do you drive?" was a common question. I met my wife a couple of years later while driving the same car, and she didn't care. That vehicle was like truth serum. I was able to confirm she was not kidnapped. She simply left. Story 63. It was senior year of high school. Our prom took place on a local boardwalk in a rather poor venue. My date, who was my best friend at the time, wasn't having the best time, so we decided to leave halfway through and hang out on the boardwalk. We were not the only ones or even the first to do this, but that night was unusual for anyone other than us because the boardwalk visitors were suddenly surrounded by sharply dressed young adults. Because of this, many people wanted pictures with us. When 2 guys wanted a picture of me and my date, one of them automatically assumed we were a couple and asked, "Is it cool if I stand next to your girl?" I didn't correct him and said it was fine. The picture was taken, and as soon as the guys walked away, she mocked them, followed by a fake gag. As a joke, I asked her, What's so disgusting about that? How naive I was. I was met with a long verbal explanation about how I am her best friend. She loves me like a brother, and all the other ways of being friend-zoned. I had planned to ask her out that night. I felt awkward the rest of the evening, but I still had a good time. Story 64. Not really a bad way to get rejected, but more a bad way to get into a situation where you are about to get rejected. Learn from my mistakes and never have a wingman when you are crushing on someone. I was crushing on this girl for quite a while, and I was too shy to simply walk up to her and ask her out. So instead, I managed to get to know her through one of her male friends, whom I had already known for some time. I am pretty sure it must have been obvious to the guy that I liked her because he had offered to be my wingman when I was talking to him one day. He was useful from the start because he told me some things about her which I could use as conversation starters when talking to her. He did gain my trust because he was helpful in my situation. The only sad thing I did not know was that he actually passed on everything I said behind my back to my crush, which eventually led to me being awkwardly rejected by her out of nowhere while I was minding my own business in front of many classmates. Story 65. My prom date, who was my ride home, left me in the middle of prom. Story 66. The worst way I have heard of someone getting rejected was when they proposed to their partner in front of a large crowd. The partner not only said no but also made a joke about it, leaving them humiliated. It is a tough situation that can sting for a long time. Story 67. My coworker had a friend who was recently single. We ended up doing a double date type of thing. We walked around Disney Springs in Orlando and did some activities there. All she did was talk about her exes, mainly the one who was apparently deployed to Afghanistan and the Middle East. I had heard about these people before, but actually experiencing it was kind of bizarre. Not only that, but especially when I said almost nothing due to her nonstop talking, and not even directly to me because she was mainly trying to catch up with my coworker and his girlfriend. Once the night was over, my coworker called her out on her behavior while we were driving home together. It felt unpleasant at the time. However, in hindsight, it was a good thing because this ex was around 30 while she was 19. There were other signs of immaturity as well, but I didn't fully understand the situation because I was not very experienced in those aspects of life. Also, I wouldn't have cared if she didn't want to go with me because she knew what I was like, and I knew what she did. She had the option not to go, but the fact that she went through with it anyways, and it wasn't about a free meal since she paid for her own expenses, made it feel like I was being emotionally burdened for some other reason. Story 68. I got stood up for my date last night. He decided to wait until late in the evening to message me that he had an emergency that day. I had messaged him earlier in the morning to confirm. I know he saw the message and was online multiple times. Just be honest and tell me you changed your mind. It is not the first time I have heard the emergency excuse from a guy. Story 69. I went on a blind double date. She would not even sit next to me. I sat down and she slid way over. Story 70. I was never told that they were breaking up with me. They continually distanced themselves over the course of years while being their usual self during the few moments they were willing to give to keep me comfortable. Story 71. Early teens. She agreed to meet me at a central square. I couldn't find her, so I called, and she kept giving me poor directions before hanging up. Then she said her phone battery was dying but told me to keep looking. I spent 3 hours searching, but she was never there. Story 72. She agreed to see a movie with me, but said once it was over, she planned to see another man for an overnight stay. I let her know we would not be seeing the movie. Story 73. Years ago, I finally got the courage to ask out the cute girl at work. She gave me the standard line, "I'm just not ready for a relationship right now." Okay, no big deal. 2 weeks later, she started dating the biggest jerk at my work who is a known cheater. Story 74. 4 years, my brother-in-law's best friend told my sister how much he wanted to be with me, but I was in a relationship at the time. When I became single, I decided to give him a chance. We went on a couple of dates, and he waited until after we had sex to tell me he did not want a relationship. Since he is involved in my nephew's life, I still have to see him around. Story 75. My first crush was on a girl named Bryce, and I told my friend because that is what you did in 6th grade. Turned out he also had a crush on her, and they started dating. One morning, we were all waiting for homeroom to start when he ended up telling her about my crush. She looked at me and said, "Gross." Story 76. My first boyfriend told me that he only asked me out because he and another guy in my grade made a bet to see who could take my virginity. Story 77. Not as bad as some on here, but I was chatting with this girl online on Microsoft Network Messenger and we were getting close. I cannot remember how we met, but we had never seen each other in real life. Anyway, we decided it was the day to send each other pictures of ourselves. Sue sent hers, not what I expected of course, but I said she was pretty. Now my turn. I sent what at the time was my favorite picture of myself. There was a long pause. She only responded with "laugh out loud," then followed up with "you are ugly." I didn't respond but was deeply hurt and just sat on my bed on the brink of tears in my room. I didn't understand, as she was so nice and caring. It shocked me that she could be so cruel like that. Story 78. My female best friend in high school said something to me that hurt me at the time and affected my life for years. We were joking about people one day, and she looked at me dead serious and said, "I would never date you. Look at you. You obviously don't have anything." She was looking at my crotch. I had a disease early in life that stunted my growth, so I was only 5 feet 4 inches tall and 120 pounds. I was already self-conscious, but that destroyed me. I didn't date for years because I thought I really had nothing to offer. Even today, after many years, I sometimes feel down thinking I am nothing because of those few words. When I begin to feel that way, I go help a needy or homeless person feel good about themselves, which makes me feel better. No one should ever be made to feel like they are nothing or have nothing to offer anyone. Story 79. We do not want the likes of you here. From a job interview I had a few years ago. Story 80. In 8th grade, I was absolutely in love with a girl who I thought was gorgeous. She was very popular, and everyone loved being around her. She sat 3 seats in front of me in homeroom. I finally gathered the courage to ask her out, and she loudly yelled no. Then she proceeded to say, and I remember this very clearly, "Why would a girl like me go out with someone like you? I mean, look at you. Your neck is actually dirty. Who has a dirty neck? Don't you wash?" I felt like I was 4 feet tall. Crushed me completely. I went to the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and she was right. I was gross. It was very scarring, but I never had a problem with hygiene again. So thanks, Karen D. Wherever you are. Story 81. A friend of mine, 35 years old, was taking me to meet a woman a couple of years younger than me. We did introductions and I went to grab us drinks. As I was coming back, the woman was yelling at my friend, "I thought you said he was cute." I walked up and said that I had to go because a buddy of mine needed a last-minute designated driver. I just went home, made some chicken tenders, and watched the movie The Replacements. Story 82. I had a girl that I jokingly referred to as Zombie because she ghosted me all the time. Every time I was about to move on, she popped back into my life. Eventually, she invited me over. Initially, I said no because I knew she was unpredictable, but as she kept begging, I gave in. I knew it was a bad idea, but if I didn't go, I would be haunted by the what-if question for the rest of my life. I also had a big crush on her, so I was a little desperate. After a 3-hour train ride, a plane flight to another country, and a 5-hour bus ride, we finally met up, which surprised me. 10 minutes into the conversation, she told me she had gotten back together with her ex, but didn't know how to tell me. She ghosted me again after that, so I never really figured out why she pressed me to meet up with her. Maybe it was an excuse because she thought I was unattractive in real life. I will never know. Then, about 6 months later, she texted me out of nowhere and asked if I wanted to be just friends. I said yes, but then she blocked me. I don't understand that girl, but I won't lie. I still think of her. Story 83. Back in early high school, when I was about 14 years old, I messaged a girl on Facebook because I was very shy. She did not know who I was, so she asked someone in my class to introduce her to me. She looked at me, laughed exaggeratedly at my face, and walked away. After that, she ignored me. Story 84. I had been spending time with this guy for about 6 months. It started with no feelings, but over time I developed feelings. One morning at his house, I decided to be honest and told him how I felt. He stared at me the entire time I was nervously talking, and after I explained, he said nothing. He got up and got ready for the day without acknowledging a single word I said. I sat on his sofa in silence, feeling more awkward than ever before. He packed his bag, said, "I have to go," and left his own house. I sat there bewildered. I gathered my things and left. We did not speak for 3 years after that. Story 85. Toss-up between being slapped and having a drink thrown at me. To be fair, I was using variations of the "nice shoes, wanna have sex" line, and not everyone responds well to it. Story 86. When I was in second grade, there was an audition to showcase talent. I am good at singing, but when the teacher asked who was going to participate, I was the only one who raised my hand. However, the teacher said no directly to my face and in front of my classmates. The reason was that I did not attend our Christmas party. Only the children who attended the Christmas party were allowed to participate. Story 87. She dropped my pants and started laughing. She tried but said she couldn't do it and left. This has happened many times in my adult life already. Some instances have been worse than others, but I have learned to live with it. I was addicted for most of my adult life because of my trauma. I have been sober now for over 2 years and have found the person I am supposed to be with. Story 88. She said she would let a homeless person go before me. Joke's on her. That is how you get urinary tract infections. Story 89. My ex was involved with a coworker for months while taking money from her husband and me. I take full responsibility for getting involved with a married woman, even though the marriage had been over for a decade. It has been difficult to confess my mistakes, but having that narcissistic, miserable, self-serving person out of my life is a blessing. I found out through some investigation online. He can have her. Story 90. Sean McMahon wrote in my yearbook, "Dear Rachel, you are a very nice person, not girl person." I was known as the hermaphrodite cheerleader from Long Island. Story 91. About a decade ago, I arranged a date with someone I had dated once or twice years before. She did not show up and did not call or text. It turned out her daughter had to go to the hospital and eventually needed a heart transplant. Story 92. Ask a girl from high school out while at the gym. She tells me she cannot because Easter is around the corner. It was February. Story 93. The only thing I will say is I expect a problem in every situation. If not, I am asking what is going on. Some people do not act this way. Story 94. Came back from a conference to find multiple friends with benefits posts on Reddit about how he had finally found a partner who was on the same page as him about sex. That partner was not me. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.